Hello and welcome to Decorating Pages podcast. I am your host, Kim Wanab, and it is our last episode of the year. It's a lot. How many episodes did I do this year? Let me just take a little looky here. You got 45 episodes? You got 45 episodes in this season 8. Man, I worked my tail off. I mean, considering the year I've had, that's pretty good. 45 episodes. Bravo to me. How about that? Let me tease what's going to be in this one because I got an awesome one to end the year on. Avatar, Fire and Ash. I'm talking with production designers Dylan Cole and Ben Procter and set decorator Vanessa Cole. 3 of them. And we really get down to, that misconception about the sets not being real and it's, computer generated, and talk about their design process, how building for the scale of the actors versus the avatars and this ash people palette, the wind traders, insane rope work, and we will get into all of it in a few minutes. So let's start out with giving thanks to all of the listeners, everyone who listened this year, everyone who participated in subscribing and downloading. Thank you. I moved my little project over here to a different host, which no one cares about, but they have different ways of tracking the podcast and how many downloads and everything you get. And it's not really genuine when someone tells you how many downloads or listens they get. It's really hard because they're on different platforms, and some platforms don't release that information to your host and blah blah blah. But I have had tremendous growth this season. I think it's definitely become a stopping place for interviews for awards seasons, and I am honored for that. I'm honored anyone who gives the time for this podcast and allows me to just dork out with them about their work. So thank you so much to all of the guests. This year, some of my stats, just so you know the growth that you gave this podcast. Fans listen to this podcast longer than 91% of other shows on Spotify. That's big. This podcast received more comments than 93% of the other shows on Spotify. That's crazy. This podcast received more shares than 95% of the other shows. So, in perspective, there are about 3 million podcasts out there. And for this little niche to do as well as I do in the television and film interview section of iTunes, is it still iTunes, iPods? I don't know. iPodcast. I don't know. I don't even know what it's called. iPod. I don't know. And Spotify and Overcast. Those are my 3 main big download places. But I'm able to track a lot more than I used to because it just has gotten easier. So this year, the podcast its best rating in the US was number 29. And I'm pretty proud of that, being 29th in the millions of podcasts that there are in the TV and film interview section. 6th in Canada, 16th in the UK, 13th in Australia, and number 2 in New Zealand. So thank you everyone for listening around the world. Those stats to me are crazy, we have this reach with talking about people's work. And so I am so absolute proud of that. To give you a couple of the best episodes this year that did the best, which is hard to say because if something came out last January, obviously it's going to have more downloads and listens than something that came out 2 weeks ago. So it is hard to judge that. But above all, the episode that I did on budgeting secrets, smart spending for set decorators in TV and film, by far did the best all year. And I am very proud of the set decorating masterclass that I put out earlier in the year, and so proud that it has done well selling. And people who have reached out to me who have taken the course and enjoyed it and just had questions, I've been available, to speak with them and give them feedback or help them if they had problems or anything like that. So I have found it very enriching to have been able to put out this course, and I feel like it's very knowledgeable to if you want to be a set decorator in this industry. So thank you to everyone who downloaded that. And if you haven't, there's always a 20% coupon laying around somewhere. Just subscribe to for the email, and there you go. Other episodes that did really well this year, the Oscars 2025 Best Production Design, when I picked my winning ones. And then as far as interviews go, I know that this was way back, but it did really well, was Inside the Vatican, the production design and set decoration of Conclave with Susie Davies and Cynthia Slider. Also, Inside the World of Severance with David Schlesinger. That episode did bonkers. And so has Frankenstein, that was released recently with production designer Tamara Devarel. Yeah. Um, Deverall, sorry. And yeah, the Frankenstein one did very good. So I am so excited that you're excited about this and you keep listening and learning about production design and set decorating. And thank you to all of my guests again. Let's talk about the best books that I've read this year, because they're all design books, basically, because I am a design dork. I would say, not in any particular order, but The Path to Paradise by Sam Wasson, about Francis Ford Coppola and his making of Apocalypse Now, was really good, very insightful. It goes into more than just Apocalypse Now and his film career as directing. I really liked hearing the stories about his inspiration and how he went through that process. The book Hollywood and the Movies of the 50s by Foster Hirsch. Hirsch, I don't know, Hirsch. I found really interesting about the influence of the 50s in cinema, and with the invention of the television and then cinemascope and trying to bring people back to the movies, which is very telling of how we are struggling today. So I felt maybe some people should read that. Maybe they'll get some ideas. Lauren by Susan Morrison, about Lauren Michaels and Saturday Night Live. It is an enigma of Saturday Night Live and how well it is done for 50 plus years. And so I wanted to read about the person who created that and has kept it going. And there's no secrets about his personality of how he's done it, or they don't ABC it out, but it is so interesting of how he dealt with the network, how he dealt with the change of the cast and so many different personalities over the years. So I would definitely say that that's a good read. Who Knew by Barry Diller. Loved it. Absolutely loved this book. Barry Diller, the head of Paramount, so important in so many ways to the film industry in the 70s and 80s, and started out like, what was he, a shoe salesman or something? Like, it's something weird. I forget. Like, he was something, he was a nothing, and all of a sudden he was an executive. It's a crazy story, and he's still going. So I really enjoyed his book. Um, I I would say my number one book of the year is My Name is Barbara by Barbara Streisand. And I know it's not about film, but it really is, because as she starts to talk about how she's directing and how she would direct shots and set up shots, and I thought the camera would go here and like, there's a lot of information for filmmakers in her book. There's a lot about her wardrobe too. There's a lot about exactly what she wore on September 3rd, 68. So, I mean, it's a lot going on in that book, but it's worth it. It's a long read, but filmmaking wise, when she talks about directing Yentl, and I don't know, I just really enjoyed all of her like vision and learning about how she was so natural in all of it. I thought it was fantastic. I am currently reading Kubrick by Robert P. Kolker and Nathan Abrams. So I didn't quite put that on the list because I'm only like halfway done, but reading this did inspire me to make up a couple YouTube videos about the psychology and the science, the production science of Stanley Kubrick's films. So I made up a 2-hour video of it, breaking down the movies 2001, Barry Lyndon, Full Metal Jacket, The Shining, Clockwork Orange, those 5 films. And I wanted to try something, so don't hate me. There's a trend on YouTube of videos to fall asleep to. And what's better than like looking at Stanley Kubrick films and, trying to psychologically figure them out and putting you to sleep. So I wrote it out. I did the outline, all of that. It's not like greatly written or anything, but I do have a lot of, I think, pretty good points in there. Um, but I did use a different voice. I used a voice that I thought people would fall asleep to. And funny enough, when I showed my husband the video, he said, "That sounds like me." I said, "Yeah, well, I like your voice. I'd fall asleep to your voice." So anyway, I have 2 videos on the YouTube channel of the production design, psychological science of production design of Stanley Kubrick's films. That's what I did with the 5 spare minutes I did in the last couple weeks while I made that video. So if you'd like to check that out, please do. So that's there. That's those the books that I read this year that I would greatly um, recommend for the year. I know that I haven't talked about Rob Reiner, and funny enough, every time I pre-record one of these openings, I swear to God, something happens, and then it's like, it's current event, should I go back and redo it? And I started 2 weeks ago, and it's too hard. It's awful. We all know it's awful. And the reflection of looking at his films and the influence, the art of influence of what he gave to the world of cinema and filmmaking, it's it's one of a kind. He really was. Those films, Princess Bride, Harry Met Sally, I mean, Spinal Tap. And then I watched the second Spinal Tap. Still funny. It's it's genius, and he is. He's one of a kind, and I think it's really sad. And the loss of that is so great in so many ways to so many people, I'm sure. And as a fan, I don't know what I would have. I Stand By Me is and The Princess Bride is so much inspiration for me to get into film and decorating. So all I can say is thank you to him and to other filmmakers, because I always think it's sad when someone passes away and we really examine the influence and everything. We should really do that more when people are alive and thank them when they're alive. And having lost my father this year, I could say I'm an expert at that right now. So thank you, Rob Reiner, for the influence. And I wish I had gotten to meet him. What an amazing person he seemed to have been. So thank you. Um, let's lighten it up a little. Let's get into what one up's watching end of the year. I watched yeah, still a lot of we watched Sound of Music, we watched A Christmas Story, we watched all of these things again this past week for Christmas, and we put on Shop Around the Corner, 1940, which was done by Cedric Gibbons and Edwin Willis, decorating. And I didn't realize that they had done it. I had seen it once before, but it's basically the original of what You've Got Mail is made out of. So it's a cute little film, 1940 Shop Around the Corner. And then I checked out the new film Nuremberg, about the Nuremberg trials, and it has Russell Crowe, who is fantastic in this film. Production designer Eve Stewart did an amazing job in this period. I don't have the decorator's name. I know it was a man, but I don't know, Michael some Stewart. So I don't know. So really well done production design wise, and showing there's so many torn down film places, and I would love to know how they got all that. And in this film, they do show real footage of the concentration camps, which, as much as no one wants to see it, no, everyone wants to look away, it's still something that should be seen, and it should be realized that these atrocities happened. So I applaud the film for using that real footage, and not just a flash of it either. It's a couple minutes of it, and it's very impactful in the film. Overall, the film is good. It's a side I never knew about the doctors who the shrinks who worked with the Nazi prisoners before they went on trial, and in their psychological minds, and trying to keep them from not committing suicide type thing. Um, I think Russell Crowe was the best thing in the film, and I don't think Remy Malek can really stand up to him as a lead. It just didn't match up for me. And I just found some of the dialogue to be very simple for such a heavy movie. Now that's just me. I hate to criticize films because I know we all put a lot of time and effort into it. I also find it very odd that no one that I can see is talking about this film. And I think Russell Crowe did really well in it. So I just want to give him a shout out. I thought he did well. So yeah. All right. That's it. That was my year in review. I hope that that was pleasant for you because it was exciting for me. Thank you for a great season 8. So let's get into this last episode. Avatar: Fire and Ash with production designer Dylan Cole, who does a lot of the illustrations and the whimsical and the story that is set inside the Avatar. I don't know how to say it, but Ben Procter, production designer, is more of the reality based. The city that they're building, the boats, the mechanics, the automobiles, the lab. So they have split that up because it is such a gigantic job. And yet, one set decorator, Vanessa Cole, who has a team of wonderful people, but they have been living inside this franchise for years. And what I loved hearing about so much is how grounded they still are in their process. And this misconception that it's all animated and the actors just show up and the computers do the rest is so false when we get into the builds that they had and what specifically was the build. And Ben puts it really brilliantly, I thought. He says it's basically live action by other means. And I applaud them so much for helping create and really push this way of designing, and because it's the innovation is incredible. We talk about the building of the worlds that the actors can actually perform inside, how sets and story evolve together, why Jim Cameron's obsession with proof of concept means that everything has to make sense down to the ropes getting pulled if they were being attacked. The ash people, the design of that, and this beautiful palette that breaks from this beautifully colored world into black, white, and red. Um, it's just wonderful. And the wind traders, I'm obsessed with this whole style of travel and the beautiful way that it is conceived and drawn out and made practical is really beautiful. So I enjoyed this profusely. I got to go to an interactive preview of this where they had set up costumes and set pieces and real like not mannequins but like pieces that you could see how big these avatars really are. And yeah, it was great. It's a really beautiful film, and I think I liked it better than number 2. um I just think there's more story there, and it's just so you're just such in awe of the design of it that the story does break through in this one, and it becomes a very good bookend, I felt, for number 3. So I hope you enjoy.
Hi, Kim. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for giving me the time for this. I don't know where to start and completely overwhelmed with trying to figure out how to ask you guys questions. So bear with me. But it's awesome to be able to talk with you about this because you've spent a lot of time in your life on it. So I'm sure you want to talk about it. Um,
Indeed. Lots to
and
say.
are you all in New Zealand? Where are you?
So
Ben
Ben
and
and
I
I
are
are
in
in Los Angeles. Yep.
You're
Yeah.
in
Dylan and I are
LA.
here in LA. Vanessa's in New Zealand.
You're in New Zealand. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. I won't go too long. I know time is always precious to us working folks. Um, are you on Avatar 4 now? Who is on? Are you on it? Is
Let's
that a
see.
real thing?
Softly.
Kind of.
Softly.
Exactly. Kind of.
I'm working on another project which I can't talk about, but
You won't
looking
talk about, is it Legend of Zelda? Because that's really what I want to talk
yeah.
to you about.
but but no, we're hoping that four comes back to New Zealand. So yeah,
Well,
and we'd love to have Ben and Dylan back here.
4 and 5.
Yeah.
oh my God, could you imagine? I mean, you've been working on this since 2009, right? In some capacity, right?
We've been on this
Or
since
before
2013, actually. So
2013.
so it's only been 12 years, so no big deal.
But we did
Uh,
work for a year and a half on it in 2007. So if you add that all up, it's 13 and a half to 14 years.
yeah,
Did
exactly.
I
Yep.
Whereas
really just say that?
my tenure is a bit more limited. I started in 2018, and we've had a few production hiatuses, but it's been a great project in terms of
Oh, yeah.
scale and length. They're pretty rare to be like this, to be honest.
I mean, you've created a new way of filmmaking. I mean, you are a part of something that is new. It was new then, and it's newer now, and it just keeps evolving. And it's so exciting to be a part of that because this is probably part of a lot of our future in filmmaking. So, I mean, it must be so fulfilling to have been able to work on something like this, whatever the timeline is.
Yeah, I mean it's fulfilling, but at the same time, you just kind of get caught up in the usual stuff of design, right? Like we're just still trying to, it's as crazy as it is and as exciting as it is. It's ultimately you're still just trying to tell a good story and help enforce all that visually, and and just try and be storytellers of the best we can. I mean, we're fortunate to work with some of the absolute technical best in the business, as you can imagine. So we try and let them do their thing and we can do our thing, and we just try and keep up with the crazy process. I mean, we certainly can't take any credit for inventing anything, but hopefully we can take some credit for adapting and trying to navigate it the best we can.
Well, I mean, but you're creating these where you're designing and decorating these worlds. You've created something out of almost nothing. I mean, it's an amazing project in that sense too.
I think people don't realize how physical our production is. I think there's a wide misapprehension that it is an animated film in some way, that we have actors that come in and do voice roles, and you get kind of either some combination of animators or the computer magically makes that into this Avatar film at the end of the day. And nothing could be farther from the truth. Jim calls it live action by other means, which is actually really accurate. I mean, at the end of the day, the big difference is that we have a virtual camera. We're using kind of rendering and a virtual camera position to create the final shots that you see. But almost everything else involved in the process is kind of the way you normally do it, right? So if we have actors that need to give an incredible performance, actors that are out there on, walking around Pandora, interacting with all kinds of crazy scenery, like Dylan's huge ship, in the new film, etc. We have to account for every one of those physical spaces, and the actors have to live and operate and do their job in those spaces, right? And so at the end of the day, there's a kind of a truth underlying the process that is very similar to if you went and did it all for real. And the extent to which we go the extra mile to make things real is, of course, like for Avatars 2 and 3, we had to invent underwater motion capture, or I'm sorry, I should never say motion capture, performance capture, because that captures the emotion and everything that the actor is putting out. And like Dylan said, we can't, he and I and Vanessa can't take credit for a lot of the technical aspects of it, but it's incredible, and we do have to deal with the practicalities of what that means in production, right? So we have to build sets that have to go underwater. We have to figure out what kind of materials aren't going to bleed toxic crap into the water that's going to ruin the view from all the 35 to 100 whatever cameras that are trying to perform, capture the performances. So it is a highly technical interface that we have to make with it. It's not just design normally, but then we're doing all of the emotional and visual investigations that we would normally do. So it's a little like trying to be an artist in the middle of like a space program. It's kind of how it feels.
Yeah.
It's like we're doing a moon mission, right? There's all these crazy nerds with pocket protectors, but we're there trying to. That the whole purpose of it is for us us to help Jim tell this amazing story, and so we stick to it.
I
And
was, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Further to that, I think what was really great with the live action sequence is we try and do as much in-camera effects as possible. So we'd quite often there'd be burning, there'd be flooding. You know, it's like a normal film in that we build and furnish those sets, but
Right.
also we do a lot of reference testing for the VFX artists. So there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes that people assume is completely VFX, but there's always a live action component.
I was at the screening this past week, and the costume designer, Deborah Scott, was there, and she was saying how they were able to evolve the costumes over, even during after they had shot things, they could go back and change things. Did you have that process in yours? Were you able to go back and say like, oh, this ship actually should be bigger, or like, let's bring it in a little? Was
Well,
that
yeah, I mean, a lot of things evolved. You know, sometimes just because of even though as many years as we said that there's still just never enough time to design these things, and so stuff wouldn't be fully polished when we would do the performance capture. So we would have our virtual set so Jim could see the set, but a lot of times it wouldn't be fully tricked out, fully designed. Also, sometimes Jim would just have another idea. Actually, one big thing that changed that was exciting was Varong's creature, the night wraith that was developed after performance capture, and at first we were looking at possibly having the Ash people ride all entirely different different creatures, and then yeah, sorry, I'm jumping ahead in your slideshow.
No, I have it. I have it.
Then, yeah, her,
Yeah.
who we fondly call Ashley, but you know, but then you know we just realized she needed to have the special creature, and just you know and we just always an excuse to have something new and exciting in an Avatar movie, and creatures are a big part of that. So yeah, that was an example of something that just we invented after performance capture, and sets are constantly being changed, and there's also just a lot of storytelling needs as the edit evolves.
Right.
Sometimes we will change locations of certain scenes, change storytelling needs. Sometimes we need to combine things. Sometimes whether it's time of day or place or location or just wholesale moving things, yeah. So it's a constantly evolving process, and that's what definitely keeps us on our toes.
Yeah. The one thing that all of the sound was there, the writers were there, and they had all talked about the research that they had done, and that Jim loves, he wants like proof of concept for everything. And so when you're designing the sets and everything, is there are there sets that influence the script? But even though like you might not be able to prove that yet, but like are designs there? Now I know you're doing 2 and 3, and there are already some sets that are jumping back and forth. But for the new things, did they influence how the script went in some scenes?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, the one thing we should point out is that, we talk about all these years we've been on the project. What that means is that in 2013, when we started, there were no scripts. There was 1,800 pages of notes from the crazy mind of Jim Cameron. There was a writing team that was just being staffed up, which, and Jim had a very interesting approach to do it a little more like a television model of having a writer's room where they would all break the story together. And when I say the story, I mean the story for all the future movies, which at first was 3 and then has become 4, right? And so in that matrix of creative stuff happening, of course, when we would do artwork, 100% it could end up influencing it could give them an idea that they would flesh out into a scene in the writer's room. And it was fun to have them come up to the art department and like look at prints on the wall. And they were like literally kids in a candy store. They were so excited to actually see this world that they've been talking about endlessly in these incredible sessions with Jim. And Dylan and I invariably would end up seeing descriptions in the final scripts that were literally written looking at the picture. Like we know which exact image they're talking about.
Right.
So yes, there is that. And Dylan, if you have any specific anecdotes there.
Yeah, no, there was a fond one where we were designing the Cove of the Ancestors, where the big third act takes place in Fire and Ash, and we saw it briefly in Way of Water. We were trying to design that, and at first it was kind of as expected with with sort of similar floating mountains as film one over water, but it was called a cove. So it's like, okay, what makes it a backstop? So I was just trying to push it and do something different with the arch shape, kind of do this kind of inverted arches and the C shapes, because I was already doing this inverted tree idea.
Right.
And so I just kind of went for it and did a painting kind of pretty last minute. Yeah, what we see here and in the background. And I just kind of went for it, and Jim was like, okay, yeah, that's interesting. And I was like, okay, well, we'll see. And it was on the wall because we didn't have anything better. And then suddenly, like a few months later, it was just, oh, and they come onto the floating island to reveal the majestic inverted arches of the cove. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess that's approved now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we were fortunate to have a few incidences like that, which is very gratifying, of course.
I can't think of anything more gratifying than the set dominates the story. I think that's kind of what we all want, isn't it? But with this story too, which I have to be honest, I like 3 better than 2. I'm going to be honest.
We've been hearing
A lot of people are saying that.
I think seeing not just like humans be bad, but like they have bad people too. Like, I don't know, there's something like, oh, they got a whole thing going on here. It's not just all peace and harmony. They got problems too. So when you get that opportunity to do, Ashley, and do all of this amazing burnt out world, what is your, I mean, what's your influence for this and and like breaking down the scale of it, because it's huge. I mean, you have endless amounts of space here to like play with, but when you break it down into the actual set, like what is your concept for that?
Oh, well, whenever you're doing anything this big, world building, right? It's overwhelming because you can just, it's everything. So of course you have to start with the story. And I was super excited to get into the Ash people and their environment because it was different, right? It's not the forest. It's not, it's not classically beautiful. It's different, beautiful in a different way. And so just to open up the world, I mean, Jim talks about Pandora being just as diverse as Earth. So this was a wonderful opportunity to embrace that. And so, yeah, I mean, he described it as a volcanic wasteland, and he was really influenced by a trip he took to Papua New Guinea, where he saw this whole area just covered in ash and life was going on. And while he had a positive a positive experience there, the Ash people, of course, went the other way. And so their home was taken out by a volcano, but which led to them just forsaking Awa. And one thing we did to help tell that story is, as scripted, it was just a village kind of in the middle of this ash wasteland. And then in discussions in the art department and with Jim, we're just trying to figure out, like, okay, how do we, for one, give this a sense of place and help tell that story? So it made sense to us that, hey, this maybe they lived like the Omata Kaya, like the Navi from film one in a big great tree. And so to help tell that story, that no, they are to help show their resilience and to show how they lived before, like, let's stick them in a burnt out trunk of a great tree. And that was a big fun design motif, and it just gives you like an icon on a stark landscape. And in their architecture, as you see a little bit of here, in our none too subtle suggestive entrance to Barong Jirt, it was they build by typical Navi means. It's really easy for a clan like this to go like caveman or super primitive, but they're not. They're very sophisticated craftspeople, and they are intelligent. They're still Navi. And so so we embraced a lot of the sort of design motifs, but with darker materials. We went with with the burnt logs and the bones and of course the ash.
No color. I mean, it's such a dramatic sense of the rest of the films because it's absent of the vibrance and the color, which is like kind of a break on your senses.
Yeah,
really.
which was the advantage of doing 2 and 3 together, because we were designing 3 new clans at once. We were doing the Mekaina, which were the reef people, the wind traders, and the ash. And so a big part of that was color palette and reserving certain things for each clan. And so we knew right off the bat we wanted to do black and white and red for the ash, right? Just for the obvious symbolism of the black being the burnt and death, the white being the ash, and the red being the blood and fire, of course. And so that was a no-brainer. So we of course held back on those colors in the other clans. And and likewise with the wind traders, we reserved the the warmer earth tones and burgundies and burnt oranges and all that stuff. And so yeah, it was color was of course a giant part of this, and just having that desolation, like be ridiculous if we had purples and oranges and greens out here in this ash wasteland,
Right.
you know, and it
Right.
just would never in a million
They'd be
years work.
happy. They'd be happy. They'd have some color in their life.
It'd be
Uh,
confusing.
Vanessa, how was it getting to do this as a break from the rest of the sets, like getting to do this part? And her
Um,
tent, which I don't have a picture of, but like the inside of her tent, I wish I could pause the screen. I wish I could have paused it just to look around. You have so much detail in there.
well, I didn't actually dress the inside of the tent. That
Oh,
was a virtual
good.
environment.
Yeah, that was all virtual.
However, it like visually, it's very different to the clinical interiors of the RDA and Bridgehead and all the military vehicles throughout the film.
Right.
And we priced up to build it, and the producer said no. So
I really actually like hearing that on Avatar you had problems too. So that is
Yeah.
amazing to me.
it doesn't matter what the scale of your film, there's always a number, and I
Yeah.
have a budget that I have to adhere to.
Oh my gosh, that's really
But
funny.
even on the RDA side, I mean that
Yeah.
it seems like there are the cultures in these films, but the RDA has its own visual culture, right? And it's something that we've evolved through the movies, and it actually, we tried to make a kind of big change in step, maybe not big, but an incremental change in step in the second film to differentiate it from the first, and then likewise, we've kind of just gone there. Like we just keep going in this direction of what I call high performance cruelty, which is to punch a lot more color into the RDA than we saw in film one. Film one, it was sort of like the RDA's palette was basically concrete gray and
Oh,
kind of olive drab vehicles that were toned down and dusty and all that. And so we've tried to inject a bit of industrial excitement into the overall way that we graphic things, the way that we dress things. Vanessa has found every cool piece of colorful high vis equipment that you can find on Earth. Vanessa has found it and dressed it into these sets. And of course, we coordinated with Deb Scott, the costume designer, to make sure that the characters would read in these environments, that they had enough little color accents to compete with the vehicles in just the right way. So you'll see, really, really high visibility greens integrated into the helicopter pilot costumes that bounced off of a helicopter design we did that had these crazy accent stripes. And so, yeah, I mean, Vanessa, do you want to talk at all about trying to support the RDA, the mainstream? We'll talk about the space hippies in a minute, but the mainstream RDA culture.
We spent a lot of time sourcing products and finishes for the floors and also the walls. And it was also in New Zealand in particular, there's quite a limited range of products available. So we were really fortunate to have the budget in which we could do a lot of sampling and that we could import volumes of flooring like rubbers,
yeah.
fiberglass fabrics, and we also had enough lead-in and prep time to work on those, to work them up to where we needed them to be, and to get Ben and Dylan's approval, but also Jim's as well. And the palettes are a really important part of this film and the different sets. It's almost like these environments are, they're a character as well. And they basically they support the story, but for people that aren't familiar with the Avatar world, it's a really easy way for them to engage and understand what's happening. And for me, it was my first time decorating lots of clinical or scientific spaces,
Yeah.
and just going through the technical issues that we had when we were fabricating furniture in the virtual. There's a lot of cantilevered surfaces and
Of course.
suspended acrylic screens and things for the graphics to play on throughout the film, and it really was quite challenging with the airspace above the sets because you're not only rigging lights, there's huge acrylic screens, and then
Uh-huh.
there's also the technology on the set. So it becomes a real negotiation between all the teams, as well as the how do we build these and make them stand up to the rigors of filming. And there's lots of beautiful surfaces in there, sort of classic sci-fi metallics, and lots of reflective surfaces and yeah, it was really fun to immerse yourself in these worlds.
It was great too because it's like very open and like you're seeing a lot. Like the center seems more of the command center and
Mhm.
it's more open around. So you got to see like when he's in that room and you see the glass and everything. Like you're constantly looking out to see what everybody's doing, which I thought was really interesting too because it is again, it's a break from the colorful world and now you're in like the real world of all of this like technology and everything.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
mean,
I
look,
think
it's
those
important that
contracts
we
are.
represent the credible threat of the RDA, right? Because it's easy to lose sight of that when you go out into the beautiful world. You know, we have to constantly remind people that the RDA is there and coming for the planet, coming for AWA. But one of the things Vanessa referenced, it's just an interesting tidbit of our live action process. One of the things that Jim noticed shooting, I think he only did a couple of scenes in Avatar 1 that had humans and Na'vi together. One of which was Jake being cradled as in like a baby almost by Neytiri when he's about to die in the shack at the end of the film. But the other was when Jake woke up for the first time in the laboratory, right?
Mhm.
And what Jim found was it was very difficult to coach the actors accurately for the person with the tennis ball and for the actors to relate properly to a Navi character within a human space, right? Because it's just hard to remember how tall they are. It's hard to
Right.
make that all feel natural. And so one of the technical things he put to our team was, I want an eye line system. I want something that's going to represent where the person's head is that is literally mechanically slaved to the performance that they gave, right? And we went one step further. It's not a tennis ball that flies around. It's a monitor with their facial performance on it,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So with that, and then the only way to make that move around accurately was to come up with something that's very much like a cable cam or a spider cam that's used in like sporting events. So what that means is you've got moving cables coming in to support this thing to drive it around in 3D space. For the actors, especially for Jack, who was younger and these younger characters, it's amazing to be able to like not have to pretend so much. You're literally looking at
Right.
someone's face. He's relating to his father character. These are emotional scenes. He can just look at that monitor. It's exactly where it should be in space. But of course, for our sets, as Vanessa mentioned, the overhead, our headroom had to incorporate, we might have wanted to drop, lighting rigs and all kinds of things into the set. But you had to always we had to do these studies of where the wires were going to go and work around that. It's very extremely technical, even on our,
Yeah.
kind of normal live action sets. Sorry, Dylan, what were you going to say?
Oh no, no, I was just wanted to back up and talk about a contrast was that when just because in Varong's we didn't have Vanessa's magic didn't mean that it was magically done at visual effects or button pushing, that it was all still done by art department and our virtual art department. And when we captured it, we had a very heavily decorated proxy set to account for all the stuff in her yurt, all the stuff she's using. Brad Elliott, our amazing team,
Right.
on set team did so much of that, so that it's always it's pixels or plaster, it's all design, right? And so it's it was heavily thought out and referenced with as much real world stuff as we possibly could to aid wet effects in the final. But we always try and go out of our way to have everything as fully fleshed out and designed as we can, just because of their monumental amount of incredible work that they have to do. They can't be asking these questions. We need to have it all answered
Right.
for them. So everything's wholly designed up front, much as we can.
Are on the physical sets, this might be dumb, are you building to the scale of the actor or of their avatar? Like, what do
Well,
you?
that's a very important question. We do both.
Okay. Okay.
We have
You do it
Navi
twice?
scale and
Not a
humans
dumb
and human
question at
scale.
all.
You do
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
twice.
and so oftentimes we sometimes we have to build two proxy sets. It gets complicated because when Spider, the human boy,
I have
is
it.
running with the Navi,
Right.
we need to pick a scale. So in a scene like this if it's just yeah, because Spider's are in the middle, but that set would have been built to what we call Navi scale, which is at like 0.66. So it's scaled down, so it is scaled to all the Navi. So what that means is Jack, who's playing Spider, his motion is screwed up because it's not corresponding to the
Right.
right one. So normally what we would do a pickup set that is scaled, to 150% so that we can get his correct travel. and then we have to have timing things, and then we have our it's not as sophisticated as what Ben was talking about for the live action, but we have other stand-in things for Navi to account for his eye lines and account for spatial stuff. So even in the proxy world, we're building things multiple times at multiple scales to account for the different characters. So yes, it's a endless amount of complexity, and we built many sets at 2 different scales.
Well, this is why you have budget cuts, because you got to build everything twice.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Just thank God these things weren't finished.
There's your problem right there.
You may be aware that we have small performers. I don't know how to say it in the nicest way, but we use very, very small adult performers as part of our troupe, who can then stand in a Navi scale set. They can be human sized, right? And so all of the, you need some representation of the human characters, whether it's Spider or somebody else, for the Navi performers as well, right? They need a sense of eyeline rather than looking up at the eyeline system I was talking about before. They have to look down to a character who's going to be shorter than them, right? And so you might end up having Spider represented or a human represented by one of our small performers. We had even underwater, it's the same thing. We had an incredible diver who just happened to be a really petite woman, and she served in the same function for our underwater performance capture.
Oh God, I could barely get any photos. So it's not that I don't have photos of what you're talking. I couldn't find them. I was up.
No, this is great. This is great.
And you don't have your ADG presentation up yet, because I was kind of relying on that.
Oh, but it is. It just went up. It's there.
It'd be up.
I knew it. I knew I'd be done this interview and it would be up.
Yeah, we were photo finish.
Yeah, because I did take one of the slides from your previous presentation about all of the weaving and everything that has to be done, and so you shot these 2 movies together?
Correct.
We did. Shot them, okay? Because I was going to ask, like, did this hold up like through time? But did it hold up?
Well, yeah, and that's why it's crazy, because it's like, okay, we did 2 of the biggest movies of all time at the same time, and so it was just this monumental, both design, shoot, everything was just huge. So, but yes, we try and do as much practical as we can, even though the sample you see on the right there was not a filming set. We try and do this as much as possible to figure out what the reality of that would be. And this is not fake. That is woven by incredible weavers in New Zealand at What a Workshop, with natural materials. That's all, different flaxes and stuff like that to figure out how this would actually be constructed. So this becomes amazing reference for wet effects. And by doing chunks of this, and we did more than this, we inform the texture of all the walkways in the village. And what's not shown here is our proxy set, which is pretty much about the size of the main walkway you see in that main illustration. We built a giant tensile walkway that was under thousands and thousands of tons of tension on our stage, to the point where we had to bolt into the concrete so this thing wouldn't rip itself apart. And it allowed for the natural flex and bounce. And there's that great moment in 2 where you see 2 kind of walk, and then she just starts bouncing on it. And that was just natural. That was just a little girl being a little girl playing on this thing. And those are the type of serendipitous performances that if we had just faked it on a flat floor, you never would have gotten. And you can tell the truth in the motion. And so, everything that you see, we try and do for real as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing process that you guys have to go through, and you had to learn this process, right?
Yes.
Learn how to do this along the way.
Vanessa, what were you going to add?
Oh, I was just going to say, like, my team put down their power tools in the workshop, and they braided over 3,500 feet of Navi scale rope so that we could dress these element sets for the Wind Trader and for these walkways. And it was a really great challenge given that we're so used to using tools now to build things, to go back to the old ways of crafting rope and carving goods and that kind of thing. So it was a nice switch to move from the sort of hard surface sets into the sort of the organic world.
As a viewer, and you're seeing all these gorgeous you know, I mean, they're animals, right? Like, I was like, these are animals, right? Are these animals?
Yeah,
These
they're
drawing that
basically
they're
giant. Yeah,
animals.
yeah. They're the medusoids are basically giant floating jellyfish that
I
have
felt
a
really bad when he had to rip. It was very, I was like, oh,
yeah.
I know you got to save yourself, but you're kind of hurting that animal. But
Well, at that point, he was already exploding, so it's
yeah,
he had
right.
bigger problems.
Yeah. So the
Like,
concept, and but that's what I think is great about like this set is that you have this tactile and rope and like textures and everything combined with the fantasy and combined with this illustrious other, I don't know, material of their wings and the like the balloon of it, but it's how do you come up with this? Like, where is this coming from?
well, this was described in theory by Jim as this sort of system of a gondola and a medusoid being pulled by a wind ray, but beyond that, it was up to us to design. And this was the hardest design challenge of Fire and Ash for me by far. And it was also the most gratifying. This is the thing I was most excited to design in all the sequels, just because of the fantasy romance element of it. However, this isn't like any other, this isn't a fantasy film. You know, we view this through a National Geographic lens. So it's like, okay, how do you take, you know, a pirate ship hanging from a floating jellyfish pulled by an inflated cuttlefish and make that, you know, real, right? And so, and through a lot of that fine detailing, like Vanessa and her amazing team did with the many different types, it's not just the amount of feet of rope she did, it's the different types of weaves. And we were very careful to do different rope weaves and braids than you see at Metcaina to establish a different culture and to layer them, because this isn't just a vehicle, it's their home. It's a story of their life, their true nomadic culture. And into those ropes, you know, they've woven in trinkets of shells and beads and anything to tell the story of their travels. And I'll let I'll let Vanessa speak more to them.
Yeah.
It was a really unique opportunity to yeah, sort of like basically bring the character to life through the materials, because we were making these pieces from scratch. And so we made things like the sail in the background. We would bind the sort of bows of the wind trader gondolas. But we would also do specific baskets for each tribe. And some of these we would build at Navi scale, so they were huge, and they would have
Right.
a steel armature inside to keep them upright. And I had a really great team of fabricators, some of whom are artists in their own right. So the production and also the actors benefit hugely from having such quality pieces on set. I think there's a misconception that when there's that there's a lot of blue screen going on. I mean, obviously there is, but when we put in these elements, they are really special pieces. We put just as much work into these sets as we would say a full live action build.
Oh my God, yeah. As I said, I think you see that. Like it's a nice break for the viewer to see more of the actual pieces. You know what I mean? Like I don't know I don't know how to describe it, but like when I'm looking at this feature, when I was looking at these boats, it's like, oh, this is like a set that they're in this right now.
Well,
Like,
yeah, and it was fun to
yeah,
approach it as a real set. I mean,
yeah.
even though we didn't build this in entirety out of photo finish, we built it pretty much in its entirety on the proxy stage. We filled our largest capture stage with the entire deck of the gondola, as well as a good chunk of the below decks and some of these large curved members going up to accommodate all the action that needed to happen. So it was a very contiguous full set that we could accommodate. God, how many Ben can we capture at once? Is it a dozen, 16, something like that?
At one point, I heard the number 32. I don't think we ever approached that. I think that's the
Okay, yeah,
technical theoretical
it's a
limit of it, but we
significant,
often
yeah.
would shoot, yeah, 16, 20.
Yeah, and so we would have complicated choreographed action scenes going on this, and funny thing about, you know, the degree to which we need to design these things is, you know, besides people going up and down in different ways, you know, you're also essentially on a sailing ship, and you're steering
Right.
the
And there's wind.
medusoid. Exactly, and so the rigging had to be legit designed to work. And we did various paper models and VR studies and all this stuff to figure this out. And to the point where we're on set with Jim, he's like, okay, let's say we want to tack port. Which lines are they letting out? Which are they pulling in? Any other director would have said, run over there and pull on some ropes, right? Jim wanted to know. So we went so far as to literally make a manual about how you would fly this thing, brought it down to stage for all the different actions you would need to do, whether,
I think you should eBay that and make your $1 million.
Yeah, no. So it's a diagram of every single rope and line and what it does and how it functions and what everyone needs to do to accommodate any sort of nautical style move.
That's awesome.
We made how to drive a crab suit manual as well, right? You remember the crab suits, which are the underwater amp suits?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a mind F in terms of like what the actor was meant to do, because there were different modes for what the hands can do and fold. There was the whole problem of how the hell does the thing even move when it's got 4 legs and you've got 2 legs? The mystery of how you operate an amp suit's legs, I think in everyone's, it's unspecified, but I think everyone assumes there's some one-to-one analog of legs to legs, and so we don't have that going for us. And so yeah, we wrote up an entire pilot manual and got that in front of the actors before they would get into the crab suit. They would know to use the knee paddles that we integrated into there to push the animal. It's sort of like riding a horse, right? It moves away from pressure. So we added controls that have nothing to do with kind of the upper body at all, or with walking with your feet. All of which just points to the fact that we're all living in this Jim Cameron design ethos world where everything has to make sense. Everything has to have a logic behind it. And I think at the end of the day, if we put the level of care and research that we put into basically everything, right? Thinking of these designs as having a life beyond the screen. It's not just about telling the story. Of course, it's mainly about that. But also it has to have a level of development that sort of hints at extra functionality, hints at extra amazing things hidden behind every tree, that if you just walked in a little further, there would be something there that's wondrous. I think it's that level of detail that makes people really fall in love with Pandora, makes people feel that they've gone on a journey and as they sit down to watch these films. So I think that's, and again, the 3D and the incredible spectacle of seeing it properly in a theater only enhances all of that.
I mean, first, how many stages did you have?
So
well, yeah, there's 2 answers. That there's in Los Angeles, we had at one point, what do we have, 4 going? Because we had 26, 27 commissary and 18. So yeah.
In Manhattan Beach?
In Manhattan Beach, that was just for capture. And we had 2 different capture tanks.
And well, exactly, 28 as well. So that's another one.
Yeah, 28. Yeah, so
smaller
5.
tank. That was for
guys. I live in Redondo. I could have just popped over and popped out.
Unfortunately, they've been dismantled now. I'm sorry, they're gone.
No, there's nobody there now. Sorry, there's nobody there. And then how many
in New Zealand? Right, we had a ton. I mean, Vanessa, you may remember better than I in terms of actual numbers, but in 2 different cities, we had probably 10 total, 12.
We were split over 3 sites, and we had multiple dive tanks and a wave making stage, and we pretty much filled every stage. I think what's hard to imagine is when we look at these vehicles that they're larger than quite often the area the crew are occupying. They extend out the gate of the studio. Some of them are so large, like the factory ship and the Sea Dragon. So we're building a fraction of that, but it fills the entire stage.
And then I found this picture. I don't know what it is, but I was like, there's something going on here.
Yeah, this is our stage in Manhattan Beach. This is our main capture tank on stage 18. And what you're seeing there, all the white, is what that is. Those are very small little transparent frosted balls. They're kind of like mini ping pong balls, because when you're underneath the water with the performance capture, you get the reflection from the underside of the water surface, which would confuse the capture cameras. So what this does is it eliminates that reflection, but allows diffuse light to come in.
Oh my God. How
Yes,
did
our underwater system, or our water system, I should say, is actually two separate systems. There's the above water and there's the below water, and they don't talk to one another. They record two different data sets, which if you play them back at the same time, you know, obviously the performer started out on the surface, maybe riding an elu, and then dives through the water and goes and dives down deep. You can see the continuity of it, but it actually is two different systems, and you can imagine there's a lot of data loss right at the water line because of the
right?
confusion of right. So the amount of technical mastery and artistry that you know that our team, you know, our motion edit team, and that Weta Effects and others need to put into, you know, interpreting that data into the fluid, perfect, believable water interaction, which is often at the surface that you see in the
Yeah.
film. It's like anyway, like many things we've done on Avatar, Jim has pushed us to make technical cinematic miracles of some kind. It's kind of
Yeah, and of course that makes the sound a nightmare because you have all the little balls. But however, the balls were everyone's favorite little missiles to launch at one another and snap. And when everyone was bored, they were launching those all across the stage and never ending.
Now, Vanessa, so because you have so much going on here, what is your relationship with lighting and the DP and like getting actors lit for things? And I mean, it's not like you have like, oh, look at this pretty Victorian lamp over here we can use, or like, you know what I mean? Like, and
I
a lot of it's natural, or but when you're in here, it's all you providing the integrated lighting system with Ben, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, more and more with films, the practical light fittings on the stage are informing what the DOP is doing with their sky panel. And I always think, you know, the more opportunities I give them for light, the more likely they'll use them. And on this film, we had a really great library of light fittings and fixtures from Waldman, Human Scale,
mm,
um, and as well as ones that we have built ourselves, like through our team of industrial designers. We also retrofitted legacy fittings from the first film.
oh, wow.
And it's because these are
Perfect.
such functional spaces, a lot of it is task lighting, it's clinical, it's
Yeah.
what would be appropriate for these settings. And yeah, it's almost like they are part of the set design, and also our console furniture or our backlit LED screens are also a light source. So it's really making sure that we're putting them in the right place and that we're giving the DOP the opportunity, every opportunity to light the set.
I was completely spoiled because Vanessa's team put together such an extensive, she says, a library. It was almost like an art gallery. They had all these things mounted to a wall with beautiful, like perfect little, you know, descriptions of what manufacturer it was and the specifications. And they were all lit, and I could just go pick, you know, from that wall and say that, you know, I want one of these, one of those in this particular set. And it also gave me, I mean, we all Russell and his gaffer Len are just amazing people, super collaborative, super sweet. So there was never an issue in terms of collaboration. They wanted to play with us and come up with the look together from the beginning. But I had this extra little opportunity, which was Vanessa made so many amazing lights, some of which were very small but powerful and very controllable. So I got to kind of like do a pre-light, my own production designer pre-light, go in the set
Oh,
and just
wow.
check, you know, with Tony, who was the practical lighting sort of coordinator technician, whatever the title is, and just specify, oh, yeah, let's put, you know, an up washer here, a side washer there, let's stick something back in this corner to get, like, bleed a little light, you know, out from behind that thing. And so I got to sculpt the set. You know, Dylan and I both come from an illustration background, so we know, you know, in terms of making an image, all the little lighting tricks you have to do to create light against dark and sculpt the look and create enough accents that it's
Yeah.
interesting looking, right? To kind of
Yeah.
bring the set to life. Because I've seen signs. I built sci-fi sets
It
that
gets
are really
flat.
cool that didn't get lit well, and it
Yeah.
just doesn't look cool. And of course,
No.
we know Ridley Scott, you know, had these crazy, in some cases, you know, sets made of like old, you know, whatever cargo pallets and stuff, and he knows how to light them so well that it looked like Alien, right?
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
is all about lighting, and it was such a pleasure to be able to play and do a pre-sculpt of it, because then the DP could come in and you know do the overall washes and think about the overall color temperature, of
Right.
course, like the actors, but the set would look, it's going to look sexy.
Yeah,
I,
Tony Slack is an absolute gem, and he is such an integral part of these set builds. His work, you know, with these illuminated panels and these specialist fittings, it's in the wall, it's in the floors, it's in the doors, it's everywhere. And I think lighting is so important for creating mood, ambience, and it just gives a level of authenticity that I don't think you can replicate in any other way.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful in there. I mean, it's a beautiful surrounding, even though they're up to no good in there. But I love the map. I love that map on the floor that they're walking through, or they're walking through a screen. Like you don't know if that like he just goes for it. I don't know. Like, I thought all
Yeah.
of that imagery was really great. I have a picture up here, and it's in the lab.
Mhm.
The walls look like they have scales on them.
I'm glad you asked about this.
Is that practical? Is that practical? Is that I don't know. I feel like I'm out of my element here. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that
Vanessa, do you
real?
want to talk about this set? This is one of your
Uh,
masterpieces.
Though that's the High Camp Biolab, which was an enclosed lab that was designed to look as if it was inflatable, and it has
Oh,
fiberglass walls that are upholstered with a fiberglass fabric. And every panel was hand sewn
God.
by Jules Mansford and her very clever team of textile technicians and applied to each surface. And every panel in that set floats, as well as having a suspended ceiling with lighting, a big lighting ring around it, and a very elaborate floor full of grills and kludge. Um, and the set went through 8 different configurations. We had to build a med tent in there, move the amnio tanks around in there, as well as introducing items like the hacked link bed. It was sort of like what I called at the time the Olympics of set dressing. I had an amazing team of set dressers in Auckland, and we were like a sort of F1 pit crew doing these
Turn it
changes
over.
quite often. Yeah, quite often while the shoot crew were in there, moving in very large, heavy objects on rostrums past all their carts into the back of the stage. And it was probably the most challenging dress, but also the most rewarding one that we did. And if I recall correctly, it was also one of Jim's favorite sets. So it was a real pleasure to work on.
Yeah, he loved it. I mean, it was from a creative standpoint, it was a chance to show a little bit more of a textured environment, right? As Vanessa said, a
Right.
lot of our laboratories and our ops center, there's a lot of slick surfaces. Of course, it's got to have that cold corporate kind of vibe. But this is where the space hippies, like our good guy characters, Norm and Max.
Yeah.
And of course, we have Garvin that we just saw a moment ago as a new character that's kind of in that vein. They kind of have their own culture, right? And that you see the way that Deb has costumed them, that it's different. The origins of that, or the seed of that, could be seen a bit in the Shack, which was, I don't know if you remember the set from Avatar 1, which was this sort of remote science station.
Oh,
That had a more rough and tumble, a little more lived in, kind of like based on Arctic research, stations and things like that. When people live in a place, it starts to, and they're sweating and they're living together, it starts to take on some of their personality. And so the High Camp Biolab was a great chance to show, kind of these people living amongst the Amarikaya, and kind of taking on some of the more organic sensibilities. Well, I mean, my favorite part was there are all these little details that you put in hoping the camera's going to catch them, right? And
yeah.
sometimes, sometimes it doesn't, as we know. But there were children's drawings of Pandoran creatures that were theoretically
Saw
done by
that.
some of the human kids that were around, or even by Navi kids, and then taped up to big electron microscopes. But there were little details like that all over the set. It felt warm and lived in a way that, of course, none of the rest of our RDA sets did. And it's
It
great.
definitely feel every set. I mean, they just all feel lived in, but especially this one because of I don't know what the time was between 2 and 3. Seemed like a little while because Ben, you got to like up your game a little bit with all of the more vehicles and they rebuilt. I mean, I mean, there has to have been like a time lapse. I don't know. I can't really
In
tell.
story time, there's almost no time lapse. It's like a couple
There's
of
no
weeks.
time lapse. How did they? Well, I'm not going to go into how they
I mean,
got all
Jake
those
Jake
vehicles.
still has stitches and stuff from his fight with Quaritch at the end of
Oh,
2.
that's
He's
yeah.
swimming down to get weapons
Beginning.
out of the wreck of the Sea Dragon. So it's not a lot of time, believe it or not. We're going to have other big time jumps coming in these stories, but that wasn't one of them.
But
Uh,
but you got to push it. I feel more with the
Well,
vehicle
as
being,
Dylan said,
yeah.
right? We were designing these things, not only these things, but also thinking about avatars 4 and 5, which I know that's mind blowing and bizarre, but yeah, and these are all things off in the future. But we had the opportunity to see everything, the entire arc, where the characters are
Yeah.
going, where how the RDA relationship to the Navi has to evolve. Obviously, new Navi cultures, new elements of the RDA. We've been able to see all this with a 10,000-foot view and a long kind of calendar vision, right? Or long horizon, I should say. So if it feels like we've ramped it up, it's not because we had more time to go back and work on it. It's just by design. It's just because we knew that we needed to create visual step ups and technology increases and all that kind of thing. I mean, some of the sets we've done are extremely elaborate. But my goal has always been to make the RDA look to telegraph how much money the RDA wants to put behind beating Jake Sully, taking over this planet, right? And it's just obviously the factory ship is like, it's an obvious visual metaphor for like, no. Oh, you thought you could stop the industrial disgust and cancer of humanity from spreading the planet. How about if a piece of bridgehead, our base, just kind of breaks off and travels out into your world to just start eating your Tolkien en masse, right? So that's an opportunity. But even in the finishing of scientific sets, for example, always trying to give that sense of, oh God, look, this is what you're up against. These people are so motivated and have so much money. How do you beat them, right?
You can't. I mean, you can, but then they just keep coming back. That's
They
the
keep coming
bummer.
back.
They keep coming back. Um, in all of this, I mean, you actually just kind of gave me the answer, but do you have a favorite detail that's in there for these films? I mean, especially, this one, but is there a sentimental detail that you have in these sets?
For me, it's the Wind Traders. They were the biggest joy to design just because of the nomadic just the whole nomadic culture, the colors, the vibe, the integrated system with the Medusoids, and just the sense of fun and humor and music and dance, and they're a good time, and it was
Yeah.
some of the most beautiful stuff in the movie. So that was for sure my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the vehicles in general as a category is kind of one of the most fun aspects, between the giant ones, which are just incredibly different challenges, difficult challenges, just because they have to serve so many purposes for the story, right? They have to have a look to them when you see them from a distance. They have to convey a certain emotion. The sea dragon, is sort of based on manta rays and a whale shark, so that it has end up with like kind of a mouth gesture, so it reminds you that it's a feeding organism, and then it opens up in this kind of like almost disturbing way, and it has a red paint scheme on the inside, which we then again, knowing that we had two movies and that we had to create some differentiation, we teased the red in the Sea Dragon, knowing full well that we would end up with a factory ship that's all red, right? Oh my God, it's the same motif, but it's like even taken that much further. And there's just so many storytelling things to figure out in those sets, because they are, obviously Dylan has a lot of different types of sets, but his ones that are in rainforests and other places like that, it's a little more loosey-goosey, right? You can kind of be more organic in a vehicle like the Wind Trader gondola, but also like our big
Yeah.
technical ships. You have a sort of a rigid design that needs to serve all these story functions, and those evolve in Jim's mind and in discussions over time, and so you're always adapting this thing to be this transformer that's serving all these functions and still looking terrific. But I also just the vehicle builds that we've done, right? Especially like something like the Picador, right? Where it's not only does it look like a cool futuristic boat, it is a cool futuristic boat. It's a 30-foot boat that was built for real, because Kiwis are, really into there's a huge building industry down there. And we have this opportunity with our art director, Alistair Baxter. He just happens to be a naval architect. Well, that's cool. So instead of scabbing our stuff onto some existing boat, he's like, nah, I got this. Let's just build it. And so, so some of the physical stuff we've done with vehicles is amazing.
Have you, before I get to you, Vanessa, I've talked to other designers who have done vehicles and space stuff, and then like MIT reaches out to them and like, hey, can we just see like can we talk to you about this? Have you guys had that? Have you had real people like reach
We've
out?
certainly had it the other way, where we bring consultants in, right? So if we're going to do holograms of a brain and the character's going through a certain mental process as they're trying to scan for information or
Right,
whatever it
right.
is, we will bring in neurologists and talk to them. That was true on Avatar 1 with the way the link system would work with Jake. It was true for the spider torture scene in Avatar 2, and it'll be true for other future things as well. So we do bring in experts. And Vanessa, you should talk about the Loadmaster guy from that helped us out. How the hell do you strap things down on a big ship?
Well, a lot of our spaces with things like sort of marine decks or loading bays or moon pools and all these sort of commercial or military environments, and not having that background, I was like, well, how do we tie this down and make it look real? And so we bought basically commercial grade deck plates and tie downs with the elephant foot. It's sort of you sort of slot it in and it locks down to the deck. And we called in a couple of military loadmasters from the New Zealand Navy, and they gave us a lesson.
Awesome.
And they also do it for aircraft as well. They gave us a lesson in how you stow your load, and it was really great. And I have to say that's probably the thing I love about my job the most, is interacting with these sort of often quite random people from different real world industries, and they have such a generosity of spirit. They're like happy to share their world with us so that we can replicate it on screen.
Yeah, I always
the
love
highest
working.
compliment actually that happens to us is when our designers get hired by actual military manufacturers, which has happened a few times.
Yeah.
That's usually how it happens.
And then just to go back to Vanessa, because
I'm sorry.
I cut off the question and went into real world people, but do you have what was that? I guess did you have a favorite, or was that?
It's hard to say.
Favorite detail?
I love research, and I guess the detail and the time that we lavished on the downed Samson, which was a wrecked helicopter with some skeletons in a tree canopy. And it was just so beautifully dressed. We did so much research, and then the greens team grew these incredible Pandoran plants through it. You know, they were real plants embellished with some Pandoran specials. And it was just you just went in there, and it just, yeah, for me it just had a level of authenticity. The thing that broke my heart was we didn't actually end up shooting it. We spent about 6 months preparing for it.
Oh my God.
And it became a reference scan and photography for the film and for the artists working on it. But it's probably the vehicles, but because they're such a cool contained space, and it's how our characters or how people operate within those spaces, and the little elements that they leave behind. I like to call it human debris. You know, it's a bit like the inside of your car.
Right, my car, yeah. I really, and also just to shout out, you were saying the greens people and your paint department, and I mean, just the credits on this film is unbelievable, and the different art departments that you had all over. It's just an astonishing amount of work that was put into these projects. So congratulations, and thank you so much. Dylan, I looked up your book. I put it on my Christmas list.
Awesome.
My stocking.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Hope you enjoy.
But I also can't wait to take my kids to see it, because again, it's just a film that teaches, you know, not just good and bad, but like, how do we help each other? How do we work together? And obviously the talents that you guys have working together has made a spectacular film. So congratulations.
Really. Oh, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Really wonderful. So thank you so much for that time. I really appreciate it. And now I get to go check out your ADG packet.
All right.
So that is it. I wish I had another hour with them. Pick up Dylan Cole's beautiful illustrated book. It is on Amazon. It's such a pleasure to have met Dylan and Ben and Vanessa. And again, check out Avatar. It's at the theaters now. Let's go to the theater and see this. I have all of this up on the YouTube channel for the video that you could watch if you want to look at what we are talking about in their beautiful details. And if you like the details, just take a couple seconds to subscribe and follow and rate and comment, because as I said in the beginning of this episode, it has made a difference profusely for this little podcast. So I thank you for doing all that. Well, I hope you had a wonderful year. I hope 2026 is even better. And I will be seeing you next week with, it is either Hamnet or Tron. I'm not sure yet. But hey, those are great ways to start the year, isn't it? So I know you got a big old earful this year. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Kim Wanup for Decorating Pages.